The first thing I think is really interesting is even before cards, right? There were other items that people paid with that were not cash or checks, if as a payment device or a way to, I guess, make credit purchases, and those are coins, right?
Yeah, there was. I mean, and this has been a big debate in the hobby. We don't know. Yeah, I assume paper. There were some paper cards that probably came first, and coins um, came around probably in the 1890s, late 1880s, 1890s. We don't know for sure. Nobody's figured that out exactly, which makes doesn't think it makes the hobby interesting because new things
Sure.
are always showing up. New information shows up. Um, that this is from some um, paperwork we've seen. We know a coin like this is from Abraham and Strauss, which is a department store in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
That coins like this were issued in the late 1800s.
So
Um,
how would that be used? I'm curious how someone would use that.
well, I mean, of course, there was no name on there. It's just an account
Sure.
number. So you walked up and you bought something, and they got the number off the coin, and I'm not sure. I guess some stores maybe had a list where they went and
Hmm.
checked the list and be sure that you had an open to buy amount, uh, and they just wrote out a receipt, put it, and then it was sent up to billing. Um,
Yeah.
Now they could have had a way at the time where they called up to the credit office. I know when I was little, I remember a local store even doing that when I was little, when they
Hmm.
called up to the office to see, to be sure they
Sure.
were overdue on their bill or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And now, I will show this. Hopefully, I'm sorry, the glare won't be too bad.
Oh,
This
what
is
is
the
that?
oldest dated card that I've got from
No, what
1897, I believe.
is that?
1896.
1896.
1896. This is the Depot Carriage and Baggage Company from Kansas City, and
Interesting.
you could rent a carriage with this card.
That's insane.
So it just amazes me to think that somebody was in a horse and buggy was carrying a
Right.
credit card around. And the back of the card, you read it, it's just like today's credit card. It says, it has to be used by the issuer. It's got a lot of the rules on it are very
Right.
much like what you'd see, later on a credit card.
Well, that's what it sounds like, even with the coins or that card in particular. There what we've automated today is not a different process. There's a validation to make sure it's a good card and there's
Right.
available credit,
It's all the
and it's
same, yes.
all of that is the same. It's just been more automated than it was back then.
Now, what I want to be sure to show here while we're on coins, I think these are very interesting, and they're very sought after by collectors. And there's a lot of guys that are just coin collectors only. They might not collect
Oh,
anything else, but they
right.
collect the coins, and that's a hobby that's been around a long time. But like, here's a couple. They're shaped like keys, and like
Right.
one of
Yeah,
these is to the
interesting.
Gray Taxi Company, and one of them is to the Columbia Taxi. So basically, you carried that around, and you got in a taxi cab and charged your ride. That kind of sounds
Yeah.
familiar to something we do
Right.
today. So
Absolutely.
this is your Uber of 1920 or whatever.
Right. Yeah,
and,
so you
and
don't have to carry cash. That
right,
kind of makes sense, yeah.
and this was to a hat store, and it's shaped like
That's
a
a
hat. So
right.
they're a lot like so they're always sought after because there's something more than just a round coin. Here's
Right.
one shaped like a shirt. Hopefully you can see that. It's
Yeah,
not too much
yeah, I'm
glare.
getting it
It's
looks like a
shaped like
suit or a shirt. Yeah.
right. It's like a coat, yeah, a suit coat or
Yeah.
something. That's to a clothing store, and this was kind of a generic coin. Different stores used this. Clothing stores used this style coin. And there's some others that look like a shirt or look like a shoe.
Right.
There's several figural charge coins. Um,
That's crazy.
yeah, they're very interesting.
And I imagine you might see something like that, at some type of a store, like a resale store or a consignment store or something, and not even know what it is. Like
Oh,
those start to look
absolutely, yeah,
familiar, right? Yeah,
yeah. Before I started collecting, I knew that I didn't know they existed, and
right.
and and a lot of the charge coin collectors, one of the things they spend a lot of time doing is trying to figure out if a coin is a charge coin, because there were a lot of identification coins and good luck charm coins. There's all kinds of tokens or coins issued, and sometimes it takes some time to determine if they were really a charge coin or not.
So the coins, though, were they typically issued by a specific merchant, like just used at one type of a merchant?
Yes.
I guess except for the taxis, maybe that would. Well, even then, it could be a
They're
specific taxi
they're just
company.
a certain taxi company. There was like a Shaw livery company out of St. Louis issued different ones. This, it's a Gray Taxi, Lincoln Taxi, or just some of the names off the top of my head. But there were quite a few taxi companies that issued the coins. This is going way back for a minute, but I'll just show this since I have it out. This is the air travel card. This is the airline industry's first time
That's
they
in the 30s too. That's
this
crazy.
is and initially you sent in money to this program, like the company sent in money, and you kind of banked the money with them, and then they debited it out as you used this, if that makes
I
sense.
see. Yeah, almost like a prepaid.
But it was a way for
Yeah.
sort of, initially, but then it turned into a regular credit card over the years. But that's the 1936 is when their travel card started. And we did leave out oil companies out of the, now, since I haven't got this out, I know I'm going back a lot. This is like a 1919, 1920 oil company card. Sammy's, yes, very small company. We don't know exactly when the first gas card was issued. There's rumors Texaco issued one in 1914. One has not ever surfaced, but there has been some research. But anyway, that's another very early card. I had that. And then one thing we need to, I want to talk about real quickly before we go to Diners Club, because it's a very important part of the story, are the charge plates. They're the metal. So here's one. This is from Filene's,
Interesting.
Boston, Massachusetts. It's a metal plate.
And now is that a piece of paper inside of it?
There's a piece of paper slipped in, but it's metal on the back with the address, the name and address of the account holder imprinted on it or embossed.
Nice.
So,
Interesting.
and this, as far as I know, like this is the first charge plate. This is 1928, 1929 time that the Filene's, they were the first store to issue a charge plate. And the important thing about the charge plate, so you've got this embossed name and address on here.
Right.
So this is the first time they were able to transfer the name and address mechanically onto the charge slip. So the whole idea was to make it quicker, so that the sales clerk was not having to write down a number. So you're reducing the amount of mistakes made by writing down the wrong number. It was all about quickness and accuracy. So that's a very important, part of the progression of the technology.
Now, did they have carbon paper? Did they try to? Do you know, like, if they just wrote it down from that, or if they had some type of carbon paper way to take the imprint?
I think they did have, they had some carbon paper where I think the customer got a copy, and then a copy stayed with the store, and they sent it up to to billing. A couple of the oil companies did it for a little while. Here's a Gulf charge plate from 1930. Gulf Oil, they're still around, obviously, and we went in a little case. So here's it's got the Gulf emblem on it.
Oh, nice.
So the oil companies didn't do it for very long, though, but the charge plate stayed into use. It was the most common card used by stores, from the 30s up into the late 50s, early 60s.
So for a long time, those must have been.
Yeah.
Do you think that those became more common than the coins during that time?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Probably by the 19 and another thing, all these technologies, they didn't 1 year they stopped and everybody quit doing coins and they went to charge plates.
Sure.
Different stores did it at different times.
Mm-hmm.
So, most stores by the 1930s, or 40s got away from charge coins and switched to the charge plates. Um, I know that I've read though that Abraham and Strauss, which I showed that charge coin a minute ago, they
Mm-hmm.
kept using charge coins up into the late 1960s, but that
Oh
was very
goodness. Yeah.
unusual.
Right. Right.
But just different.
They,
Every store, like today, everybody adapts technology at a different time. You don't.
right.
Everybody doesn't do it at the same time.
Right. 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 Not every store takes a contactless card and or a mobile wallet and
Sure,
everything. Yeah.
sure.
Um. So, all right. So there's the coins, then the charge plates.
The charge plates is kind of interesting. Some charge plates were just issued by a single store,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just use it at that store. But there was also a service called the Charge Plate Associates, where each city had a Charge Plate Association, and one plate could be used at multiple stores. And
Oh, interesting.
they and there was like a central billing office in each major city, and even some pretty small cities had it. And there was a notch. There was a notch
Okay.
on the card that showed you how to put it in the machine, and then the different stores had their own shaped notch. So when it set it down into the machine, if there was a notch to coincide with that store, then that meant you had an account at that store and that they knew they could take the plate.
That's
If that
interesting.
makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. It seems like today, by today's standards, it would be pretty easy probably to, conduct fraud in a situation like that. But back then, I imagine that they didn't have to worry as much. Often,
Not as much, I'm sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
they would almost know who that person was a lot of times.
in a
I
lot of
imagine.
cases, yes, they probably
Yeah.
would. Yes,
So, all right. So, charge coins, charge plates, and there were city-wide like agreements, I guess, in
right,
place to where you could make purchases. Not everywhere, but any merchant that accepted that type
right.
of payment. And so that was the first. I mean, that was a multi-merchant. Like that was what we think of today as a card, where you can use it anywhere almost.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Now, still, I don't think that the stores were paying a percentage of the sales or anything yet. I don't think they were to that point. I'm not sure
Right.
exactly. There's not a lot of information on those charge of plate
Right.
associations in that company. I've done a lot of research, and there's just not a lot of information still around about how that worked.
People start to pass away, and all that history gets lost and forgotten.
Exactly.
I hope you enjoyed that video. What a great group, the ACCCS. Make sure to check them out. The link is in the description below. The link is in the description below. Subscribe, like the video, watch the full video, and we're done.